Hey, what's going on everyone? Hawks21 here, back with another Splinterlands video. So more Rebellion content for you guys. I am back, second day in a row. Feels good. And we're gonna get right into it. We have 5.5 days at time of recording. By the time you guys see this, it'll be closer to 5 days left before the pre-sale starts. Just a reminder, I am going to be organizing a bulk buy. So if you are looking to participate in a Rebellion bulk buy, join my Discord, come ask how to get involved. You get access via supporting the channel. Just have to do it for 1 month to get access. That's all it takes. But yeah, so if you want to be a part of my bulk buy, head to my Discord for more information. Okay. In this one, we're going to go back to the, white paper, if that's what you want to call it. And we're going to focus on the new abilities. We have 4 new abilities: Lookout, Flank, Corrosive Wand, Armored Strike. We're going to go through one by one, talk about them a little bit, and sort of maybe some implications they may have. We're actually going to go right to left because I want to end with Armored Strike. I think this is a very interesting ability. So let's start with Lookout. Lookout. A unit with this ability results in adjacent allies taking 1 less damage from attackers with Sneak, Snipe, and Opportunity. Give your team a heads up when stalkers approach from the shadows. It's always a good idea to have a Lookout. So this is clearly a support card, right? I think it's going to be really difficult to plan your attacks around, or plan your lineups, I should say, around a Lookout monster. Now, couple ideas that sort of popped into my head, right? If you're expecting a sneak play, so let's say super sneak rule set, for example, or opportunity rule set. Those are 2 really good examples. That's an instance where you could strategically use a Lookout, right? What if it was super sneak and you put a card with the shield ability, so that cuts melee damage in half, in the back, and then you put a Lookout monster next to it. So you'll cut that damage in half and then subtract an additional 1. That's sort of how I see this card working, right? Specialty rule sets, and then ideally, right, it's a support card that has other functions, right? It's a type of card that, in my head, right, low mana, and it, maybe it does protect, maybe it has a speed manipulation, maybe it also has amplify or repair. It's a multi-use support card, and Lookout is just one of those use cases. That's sort of how I'm thinking about this ability. I think it's going to be hard to plan around on any given match, but some of those specialty matches, the sneak, snipe, or opportunity type matches, as well as just an additional good support ability. I think it's an interesting add. Anytime you can add more unique things into the game, it's going to be a good thing. So second, we have Flank. So if the unit with this ability is in the first position, then the unit in the second position gains the Reach ability. Prepare to leverage positioning and the element of surprise. Now your first 2 units can work together to bring down the enemy tank. So interesting. So think about the water team right now with Possibilis. Right, you have the double strike soulbound water card. And one of the most popular plays right now is to put some tank in the front with Possibilis, and then play the, let's go to, the Coastal Sentry, the double strike water monster, in the second position utilizing Reach. And that's a really, really, really powerful lineup and / setup right now. The thing I'm noticing here, right, with the first 2 things that we've read, it's a lot about positioning, right? It has to do with cards things are next to. So they're adding another layer sort of to the gameplay. They're adding additional importance to positioning, right? They're adding direct synergies based on positioning, which I think is really, really cool. Like a lot of the abilities right now, think about protect or triage or stuff like that. It affects other monsters around you, but it's not positioning based. I guess reflection shield is kind of positioning based in some regard, in that you want to put a reflection shield monster next to a taunt if you're expecting blast. I guess that's one small specific use case, but for the most part, a lot of the abilities affect your teammates in different ways, but it's not necessarily based on positioning. So now we have two abilities that specifically have to do with positioning. So flank is cool. I mean, obviously this card has to be in the first position. So it needs to be tanky, right? You're not going to give flank to a card that, is going to get eliminated on one turn in the first position. Maybe you do, right? Like I could see a situation where, what if a card like Chaos Agent, right? Really low mana, really low health, but super, super, super evasive, has flank. Maybe you could put that in the first position. It has flank. Then you could put your actual tank in the second position, and maybe the thought process is, my actual tank will get some shots off from the second position, and maybe my Chaos Agent in this scenario will get some dodges. So that could be one instance, I guess. But for the most part, this is probably going to be a pretty tanky monster. And I like it in general, right? Think about if something like this had neutral, some of the like really cool things you could unlock. Think about Grund with the double strike, kind of like the Coastal Sentry we just talked about. Think about things with trample, right? So what if we go here and type in trample? Let's do modern. And we're going to talk about mostly the new modern, right? These are all old modern cards. Think about Demon Shark. Demon Shark in the second position. Desert Dragon in the second position with a flank monster. If they can get rolling from that second position, they can keep trampling. Specifically a card like Desert Dragon, now that I think about it, right? You only really put this card in the first position if you're doing a backline taunt strategy. Whether you put the Curl Lurker in the back, or you do like the Slip Spawn on Earth or something. That's the main times you see the Desert Dragon in the first position. But now, you can put him in the second position with a flank monster. You don't need to worry about him taking direct damage up front. Now, obviously, he could still take opportunity damage or scattershot damage or something like that. But just another way to potentially protect the Desert Dragon. So again, I think another good ability, like nothing game breaking. It's just a useful thing that will allow you to try new things and develop new tactics. Okay, Corrosive Wand. This one's weird to me. It seems so specific. Here, I'll read it first. When hit with a melee attack, a unit with this ability does 2 damage to the attacker's armor and reduces the max armor of the attacker by 2. This is the nemesis to the repair ability. You can't repair something that's been melted into acidic goo. Note that this only affects units with armor. So it's effectively, think of it a little bit like Thorns. So a card with this ability needs to be hit by a melee attack. And then it does 2 damage to the attacker's armor. We don't know if that's affected by shield, right? Is it only 1 damage with shield? We don't know. And reduces the max armor of the attacker by 2. So that part's big because you've heard me complain about Shatter a lot. I hate that Shatter can be repaired, right? If I shatter someone's armor completely, you shouldn't be able to put that together immediately with a hammer. Well, this is kind of that thought process. So if you have some really annoying lineups that your opponent runs, where sort of their tank up front is being given armor, you now have a chance to get rid of that armor so it can't be repaired. To me, this is a super niche ability. It's going to be almost impossible to plan around this. Again, I think it's going to be something where in order for this to get used, the card's going to have other really great abilities, right? There's not going to be a lot of times where I'm playing a monster specifically because of this ability. It's almost going to have to be an afterthought that it works. Again, I'm not complaining that it's being added in. I think it's fine. I don't think it's going to change that much in general, but I just don't. It's not. This isn't an ability that you plan for, right? That you plan your lineup around. There's just too many considerations and too many sort of guesses you would need to make and be right on to really, really, really directly take advantage of this. Now, it's going to be great, right? Like, I think there's going to be times where I think there's going to be cards that are really good tanks that have this, or sneak defender type cards, right? I think there could be some good sneak defender type cards that have this, and then it becomes useful. But I don't think the main use case for any of these cards is going to be the corrosive wand ability, I keep saying wand, corrosive ward ability. Okay, and finally, last but not least, the one I saved for last, armor strike. So before we get into that, let's look at the Mantaroth real quick. So let's pretend, I'm sure you guys have read this to this point, but let's pretend that the armored strike doesn't exist. And let's just take a look at this card, right? So shield, true strike, repair, blast. So off the bat, when I look at this card, I think, ooh, very defensive tank, right? Like no magic, I'm tossing this out there. Got the shield ability to cut all that damage in half. True strike, because it has low speed. Repair, because repairing itself up front is awesome, right? These three work really well together with this card. But what's confusing about this card, it's a very low attack, right? Which is why, I think it works out that it has pretty defensive abilities, right? It has armor with the repair, and it has shield. So to me, this is a defensive type card. But then you give a defensive type card blast. Okay, again, we're ignoring the armor strike for now. Let's just look at these four abilities. The blast kind of sticks out as something that doesn't fit. Generally speaking, there's very few cards that they make super defensive and then also have some attack capabilities. I mean, there are obviously some, but for the most part, it's one or the other. But the armored strike makes blast very interesting. The armored strike with the repair and the blast works really, really, really well together. So let's talk about what armored strike is. Any unit with this ability gains an additional melee attack. So again, melee attack. This is only going to be for melee monsters. Using its armor stat. This allows characters to improvise with deadly force using their gauntlets, shields, helmets, or perhaps physical attributes, spikes, shells, etc. as weapons. So the concept, I like how they explained it, right? So this guy clearly has an axe, right? So he hits you with the axe, and then he's up close, then he uses his gauntlet, or I don't know what this situation is here. Or he uses his shoulder armor to hit you again. So think about that with the blast. This card goes, hits you with 3 damage, does 2 blast, and then goes again, hitting you with its armor stat, doing 4 damage, an additional 2 blast. So that's where the blast comes in. And also important to note, my understanding is this scales with the amount of armor that the Mantaroth gets. So if you bring a couple protects, and again, this is a neutral card, so you're going to have access to a lot of protects with this. If you bring protects, that's only going to increase its attack. And if this card takes damage and its armor goes down to 0, it'll no longer have that attack, but that's where the repair comes in. And remember, repair triggers before an attack. So this could have 0 armor. It repairs itself up to 2 armor, and then it will get to attack twice. Once with this number and once with this number. This is a really cool, fun ability. This card in general is a really, really, really great card. I think it has a lot of synergies. And I mean, this is where you see Corrosive Ward come in, right? You can whittle down. I wonder, does Corrosive Ward stack? So if I hit this once, the Corrosive Ward will bring this down to 2. If I hit it again, will that bring it down to 0? That's something we're going to have to figure out. But yeah, oh, I can click on them so you can see a little bit closer. This ability with this, with the blast, I mean the True Strike too, right? So I'm not going to miss any of my attacks. These abilities work really, really, really well together. And also the shield, I guess, right? Because we want to keep the armor. So if I'm reducing damage that I'm taking, then that's going to give me more armor, which is going to make my attacks bigger. You know, in the Protect rule set where everyone gets armor, this becomes a really, really, really good card. You bring your own Protects, all of a sudden you could get this number, plus, you know, maybe a Summoner with some shield. Lux Vega, play this with Kelia. 5, 7, bring another Protect. You could get up to 9. Then all of a sudden it's doing a second attack for 9 with 5 Blast. Yeah, I really like this ability. I think this ability is something that can be game changing, right? So if we're to look down here, I don't think this is going to be game changing. I don't think this is going to be game changing. I think this is going to be very, very, very useful. Maybe not game changing, but I think it's going to unlock a bunch of cards that are currently a little difficult to use. And then this one I think is going to be meta defining and game changing. This is a really, really, really cool ability. You know, specifically too, with melee can attack from anywhere, super sneak, opportunity, you wouldn't even have to put these guys up front. It basically becomes like a double strike. And then think about that, right? The opportunity rule set with the blast and the double and effectively double strike. So you're going to be hitting the back line with all of that damage. Very, very cool ability. All right. I'm going to stop it here. Thanks for being here. If you enjoyed, don't forget to like and subscribe. You guys stuck around through my mini hiatus, so I really appreciate that. If you're new here and sort of you've come along in the excitement, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, leave me a comment. I appreciate you being here. Have a great day, and I will see you around the game.